We have an article at CBSSports.com from our NBA writer Sam Quinn on destination tiers for LeBron James if he asks to be traded. Another return to Cleveland is its own tier at the very top, followed by the Knicks, Warriors, and Mavs in the we can really see it tier 2. And then there's he might consider, and the Spurs are among a handful of teams along with the Nuggets, Clippers, and Nets. Let's dive into it with NBA analyst John Gonzalez here on HQ Spotlight. My question before we get into the tiers is, do we really think he would leave Bronny at this point, or would Bronny just be involved in this trade?
Yeah, I think he puts Bronny in his knapsack, right? And they go wherever they go together. You can't, I mean, he just got Bronny into the NBA. You know, the poor kid should probably be playing, not probably, he should be playing in college right now. So, yes, I can't imagine that he would abandon his son. So maybe this is a package deal. You get 2 Jameses for 1, Chris. 2
for the price of 1. All right, well, let's start at the very top, tier 1, and there's one team. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers, the team that LeBron started his career with, a team that LeBron went back to and won a wild NBA championship with. That was close to 10 years ago now. Do you really see him going back to Cleveland again?
Yeah, our colleague Sam Quinn at CBSSports.com came up with these tiers, and Sam is a really smart guy, and we talked about it the other night on HQ. I think he's dead on this one. All roads always seem to lead back to Cleveland for LeBron James, right? He's a kid from Akron. He gets drafted to the Cavs when he leaves, and he does the whole decision thing, and he goes down to Miami. There was all that ill will, but it made the return story, the redemption story, Chris, that much sweeter. He goes back to Cleveland. He delivers the first championship, not just for the Cavs, but for the entire city of Cleveland in any sport in 50 years. And I was in the building the night that they lost that final championship to the Golden State Warriors, and you would expect, okay, everybody knew that LeBron James was going to leave. There might be some ill will. Absolutely not. Everybody was lauding him, feting him. He delivered that championship. So then it was, thank you so much, Godspeed, for everything you've done. So if you can get him back one more time at the very end of his career to finish where everything started, I think that narratively it would make a lot of sense. And then from a basketball perspective for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it would make a lot of sense too, because look, it'd probably have to be a 3-team trade. Maybe you have to unplug somebody like Darius Garland or Jared Allen or some combination thereof. But the Cavs, as you heard Brad Bodkin say just a little bit earlier, they're poised to win right now. And LeBron James still, even at 41, he's going to be 41 in December. He made second-team All-NBA last year. He had an excellent season last year. He's still LeBron James, even at an advanced age. So it just makes a lot of sense from all kinds of different perspectives.
And the Cavs are the favorites to win the East next season. They had the second-best regular season record in the NBA behind only the world champion Oklahoma City Thunder. So that would be kind of a full-circle moment if LeBron goes back, finishes his career in Cleveland. So could, I guess, be the Knicks, who are tier 2, but Mike Brown was LeBron's head coach in, his 3rd season in the NBA, all the way through his, 8th season. They went to the NBA Finals together, and Mike Brown is going to be named the Knicks head coach.
Yeah, the Mike Brown connection definitely is interesting because they have a history there. LeBron James is a big fan of Mike Brown. I think it's a good hire for the Knicks. And I guess also narratively, this would make sense as well, right? Because LeBron James, the greatest player, if not, 1A in NBA history, depending on your mileage on that whole conversation, would go to Madison Square Garden, the biggest lights, the biggest arena in the NBA, having to play in New York in front of that crowd. That would be really fantastic. Now, the Knicks did make their first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 seasons, right? In order to pull this off, the salary matching gets a little interesting. You'd have to unplug probably Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby plus parts. The easy one would be Bridges, Josh Hart, and Mitchell Robinson. But would the Knicks want to do that when they finally have bolstered their bench this offseason, where they add Jordan Clarkson and also Gershon Yabusele? That's a bench and a whole team, really, that looks like it's really well poised. It's much deeper than it was previously under Tom Thibodeau. We all know famously he didn't like to play his bench unit. Well, Mike Brown is the guy who's going to play those guys and get them in the rotation and not run his starters into the ground. All that said, again, it's LeBron James. You have to at least entertain this, right? Especially in an Eastern Conference, Chris, that is super upside down outside of the Knicks and the Cavs. I mean, you could really grab anybody out of a hat and say, oh, this team has a chance. Well, the Knicks are certainly one of those teams, and you have to at least entertain the idea of LeBron.
They're basically co-favorites to win the East, the Knicks and the Cavs. Which team do you think, I know we don't know who they would give up, obviously, to get LeBron James, but which team do you think could use him more between the Knicks and the Cavs to get an NBA championship with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's really close, right? I mean, the Knicks made it to the Eastern Conference Finals without LeBron. The Cavs had the best record in the East all season long. If I had to pick one, I'd still go back to the Cavs, because I think if it's unplugging, Jared Allen and or Garland in a 3-team trade, just like the history there, the fit there, LeBron James alongside Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. If you could avoid, obviously, you're not going to give up Evan Mobley or Donovan Mitchell in that trade. That'd probably be a non-starter for the Cavs. But one of those other players, and then also you've recently added Lonzo Ball. Yeah, I think that makes them instantly the favorite, like head and shoulders even above the Knicks, where right now the Knicks and the Cavs are sort of on the same tier. I think that would put the Cavs ahead of them.
A lot easier to get through the East than it is the West. Also on Tier 2, a team out West, the Golden State Warriors. And we know, John, from what they've tried to do, what was it, a year and a half or so ago, they have wanted LeBron James in the past, trying to trade for him at the deadline in 2024.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've heard LeBron and Steph kind of like sniffing around each other for a while, right? Wouldn't it be amazing if they got to play together? We saw them play in the Olympics together last summer. That was a lot of fun. Them teaming up, especially at the end of LeBron's career for an entire season on the same team, would be remarkable. It would be must-watch viewing, appointment viewing for NBA fans everywhere. Jonathan Kuminga is out there. Jonathan Kuminga is a restricted free agent. We've been talking about the Golden State Warriors potentially moving on from him for some time, because they first tried to do this 2-timeline thing, and that didn't work out. And then recently, when they traded for Jimmy Butler, he found himself out of the rotation because Steve Kerr didn't like the spacing when Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green and Jonathan Kuminga were on the floor, because they're all sort of similar players who are more suited to the mid-range than they are to spacing the floor and shooting from distance. So Jonathan Kuminga was odd man out. Now, in the postseason, when Steph went down, Kuminga really stepped forward and looked pretty good. And I think it might be one of those situations where change of scenery would really help him. The problem here for Golden State and the Lakers doing a deal is the salary matching is going to be way off, even if Jonathan Kuminga gets extended by the Warriors. So you'd have to throw in extra parts. I don't know what those would look like. But on paper, if we're just talking about would this be a fun storyline for the NBA and would it work for the Warriors, the answer is yes and yes.
I don't know if anything would be more fun, though, than if he goes to the San Antonio Spurs and teams up with a young Wemby. This is a Tier 3, which we're calling, if the Lakers break up here, we're calling this he might actually consider it. Not that we think it can happen or it will happen, but the Spurs there. And my question is, if they didn't make a huge push for KD, who was available and is a native Texan, why would they do it for LeBron?
Yeah, I guess if you're thinking about it from the Spurs perspective, this is why they're Tier 3. It's more of a dark horse, because I think that the Spurs, until, the other day when Miles Turner ended up signing with the Milwaukee Bucks, to everybody's surprise, were just sort of waiting out this whole Giannis situation, saying to themselves, well, look, we've got a whole bunch of really young, intriguing pieces. We've got last year's Rookie of the Year in Stephon Castle. We've got Dylan Brooks, who we just drafted, number 2 overall. We've got Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan and some pieces that could be potentially interesting. Plus, this bushel of draft picks. Let's just cool our jets. We'll wait this thing out. We'll let Wemby develop. We'll let this young core develop. And in the likely event that Giannis looks around and goes, even with Miles Turner, we're not in a good situation here in Milwaukee, and I want to win another championship. Where could I go that would be best suited for me? San Antonio would be the destination. Okay. If they're going to think about LeBron, the one reason why they might do it is because, in theory, even though he doesn't fit their timeline in terms of age range, again, he's going to be 41 in December, it's an expiring contract. Now, he'd probably want maybe an extension when he gets there, maybe a 1-and-1, something like that. But it would be sort of a short-term rental for them. So if they could potentially get LeBron without having to give up some of those young assets, maybe just a couple of picks and one of the lesser players like Devin Vassell, not a Devin Vassell. Sorry, I'm all of a sudden on these young guys. Not a Stephon Castle or a Dylan Harper, rather. If you could hold on to those two guys and go for some of the younger pieces, maybe then you're thinking about LeBron James.
We go all the way to Tier 8 at CBSSports.com, including all the way down to the Utah Jazz. And that's obviously not going to happen. That last tier is he would never waive the no-trade clause for these teams, and there are a bunch of them. John Gonzalez here looking at some of the higher-tiered teams for LeBron James, who, look, his points-per-game numbers have come down each of the last 4 seasons. He went from 30 to 29 to 26, last season 25. But he still averaged 20-plus in all 22 seasons. That is an NBA record he keeps adding to.